Okay, so warm good evening to everybody. Okay, I got this data just some time back, and it's a very important data that I got to know. You know, it's a time of startups, and everybody is getting into this entrepreneurial journey. So India has the third largest ecosystem, which is okay. So India has the third largest ecosystem, which is, you know, which is comfortable for people to start their own startup. Basically, people are, you know, going ahead with their entrepreneurial journey, but there is a hitch to it. There is a hiccup to it. Within the first 5 years, the third largest ecosystem, 90% of which is okay. I just feel there is a sound issue. Okay, so 90% of it fails within the first 5 years. Why is it so? So many of us, you know, we want dream of being an entrepreneur, but do we have the mindset to be an entrepreneur? So a warm good evening to everybody. I can see Nimesha, lovely. Satendraji is here, so beautiful. So good evening, everybody. My name is Divya Shah, and I'm okay. I'm Divya Shah from Radio Diva, and we started this as a small, little, humble attempt to, you know, connect people during lockdown. But basically, the idea was to create a space where everybody can open up, can talk. But now it has evolved into a platform which is dedicated to create awareness of important mental health issues. But we are definitely open to have more, you know, awareness sessions where we can be of any help to anybody. So we have important self-growth topic, and every time somebody comes, they share their wisdom with us, helping us be the better version of ourselves. So if you like our content, please motivate us by liking, by hitting the subscribe button, like, share, and every time a video is uploaded, you will get to know of it. So share it with friends and family who will benefit by our honest content. So talking about our speaker, okay, Alok Saxena, sir, you know, he has been here on the platform before also, and there is so much that I would like to share about him, but, you know, to cut it short, he has had 2 decades of experience working with giants like Siemens, Coca-Cola, and now he has turned entrepreneur. He has more than 15 products uh, under his basic company Meraki, and he is into less brews and Meraki coffee. He has different coffee brands, and he is mentoring so many entrepreneurs also. So I can say in short, he's a Chalta Firta institution. There is so much that I learned from this person. He is a meticulous planner. He is so hardworking, and so much to learn from him. So I really don't want to delay and come in between you and Alok sir. So a warm, warm welcome, Alok sir. Thank you so much for being part of Radio Diva journey and coming again and helping us, you know, enlightening us basically. Thank you so much. And yes, your entrepreneur journey has been very interesting, I must say. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences here. Yes, Alok.
Well, thank you, Divya, for that bhari barkam introduction. But today I'm here to share about some of my learnings and overall learnings about the journey that has been so far. So should we start?
Yes, sir. Please, let's go ahead. I mean, I'm sure everybody is interested in knowing about, you know, how did it happen there? You know, the transformation from being like a professional and holding so senior position in your organization, and then choosing to be an entrepreneur. It's quite interesting. I mean, will you like to talk something about it?
Yes, sure. So um, whether you are working in a corporate or you are doing something else, it provides you a kind of a comfort zone and kind of an area where you can keep doing what you are doing. But there is a point in life where which comes when you have to take a decision whether you would like to sit in the same chair for rest of the part, or take a plunge, so to say. So I fall in the category of the later one. So I took that plunge. So I am right now on the boat, and which is sailing through an open sea in fog, of course, like how the startups and entrepreneur journey is. So it is a very interesting one. So I've kind of uh, put down all my thoughts into a small slide. Just it helps me mentally channelize. Uh,
So you have had, like, when I was reading about you, you have had different kind of experiences, different kind of, you were in different kind of companies, different kind of industries.
yeah.
So you have had great experiences as a entrepreneur. I mean, as a professional, and now I think all of it came to your help. Did it when you started your journey?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, kind of. It does help because being in an environment which where you are exposed to many of the industries and many of the processes and activities that happens, which goes across into running of some of these bigger companies, that definitely helps. So my first 10 years was as a consultant, um, and then another 10 years was with Coke. That taught me a lot, and into food and beverage, and that basically led me to think something in the space of food and beverage. So I jumped into launching my coffee and teas. So that's how it happened.
Yeah. If you'd like to
Okay.
know more about it, please go ahead, sir.
Right. So my screen is visible.
Yes, yes, very much.
So in the entrepreneur, we all know he's a person who basically builds up a business and tries and takes some risk to um, in the hope of getting or setting up a profitable business. While that term is more related to a business person, I think entrepreneur mindset is basically what differentiates between what will go on and persevere over a period of time, like you rightly pointed out in the introduction, that most of the startups did not last beyond 5 years. And the difference why they do not last are two. One is cash, another is the mindset. So while in today's world, obtaining cash is relatively easier because there are a lot of people, companies, organizations from where you can get a venture capitalist or somebody to invest in your idea. But if one does not have the mindset, then it becomes very difficult to persevere through this journey. So, in today's discussion, we will be talking more about the mindset part of it. So, typically, if we see a day in a life of entrepreneur, like day in my life, so it's all up and down each day. So sometimes I am excited, and sometimes something comes up which is hard. Then I realize, okay, it's hard, but it's working. Then I realize, oh, maybe I have messed up this thing. I have to redo it again. Then I have to remind myself that why I came to this journey. Then, of course, there is another sunken thought comes, maybe I am going bankrupt. And then another comes that, okay, maybe it's all not that bad. I'm doing good. And further on, it just keeps on going. Something really goes bad, and then you start feeling that maybe it's not for me, maybe I was wrong, maybe I suck at it, or whatever. And ultimately, you have to again uh, go back to your point that okay, this is the life that you have chosen. It is going to be amazing, and let's proceed with it. So, nutshell, as we as we see who the entrepreneur is. So he's someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down. And in literal sense, that's what most of the entrepreneurs do. Um, and, and it's interesting, it's funny, it's scary, and exciting all the same time because there's a huge amount of risk involved in doing it this way, to jump off the cliff and build the plane on the way down. And so, talking about what all it will need for you get into the head of that entrepreneur, or if one wants to be one, there are certain attributes that one will have to cultivate in the behavior and their own understanding, and as part of the daily routine. It will involve risks, decision makings, failures, ownership, learning, and being humble. So, talking about risk is the initial element itself, because as you come out of your comfort zone, so suppose you're working on a job and there is a monthly salary that is coming in, then there is a huge risk when you step out, start to venture of your own, which may or may not pay you equivalent or more of what um, you are getting currently. So there's a huge amount of risk involved in this, and but then you know risk तो स्पाइडरमैन को भी लेना पड़ता है, so one will have to take that risk. There is no substitute um, to this aspect. If one wants to be an entrepreneur, the ability to take risk is one of the key aspects that one will have to cultivate. Otherwise, mm, it is very so to say makes you anxious and depressed at many times. And why it makes you anxious and depressed at many times, that happens to many of the entrepreneurs, is it's it takes a toll on your mind, that I have taken the risk, and what if I fail? So the fear of failure is something which uh, starts eating your head in the background. And with that, one contemplates, the various philosophies. Let's see whether the glass is half empty, and whether the glass is half full. But as an entrepreneur, you should not be getting into the philosophies of it. So, because none of the philosophy will result into an action until unless the entrepreneur decides to take that action. So, a real entrepreneur, what he will do is he basically sell that glass of water and convert it into some value. So, this is another aspects that uh, do not contemplate so much in the philosophies of it, of positives and negatives. At times, taking action is the best way out, because there is no sure, short, single, linear journey for an entrepreneur. Everything has to be tried and tested, and which will result in some success and some failure. in every aspect, whether it's a new product launch, a company launch, a new idea, a new campaign, whatever one is trying to do to promote their business. There is no short thing about anything, uh, that if they have gone for a digital campaign, whether it will work or not. So after a point, talking the philosophies doesn't help. Just we have to get into the action and see whether it will succeed and it will fail, and accept the failure. So if you have 10 ideas, not all 10 would succeed, and one will have to accept the failure with smile, accept the failure with a lot of humor, because it is not failure and success, they are not antonyms for an entrepreneur, or when you are an entrepreneur. One will have to always see that failures are the small steps to success. So only when we will rewire our brain to accept failure is when things start to look easier. And what happens is the, your biggest failures um, will actually become your best jokes when you are in a social circle after some years. So my learning is that keep failing and keep trying, because there is no other shortcut. There is nothing which can tell you do these 10 things and you will be successful. No, that's a myth. It doesn't happen. And of course, I mean, in our current scenarios, we always try to find, so who would be accountable, right? In our day-to-day scenarios, in our office scenario or school scenarios or home scenarios, we don't try, we avoid being on the side of the table on which accountable is written. We always try to be on the other side. So somebody has to be held accountable, and then only the next part of the realization and correction and learning can happen, right? So as an entrepreneur, you cannot blame it to anybody else. It's just you. It is you telling you what you have done, and look at you what you have done. So that's the biggest thing. So it's always you versus you correcting you, and move on to the next failure. And 100% take extreme ownership and be accountable of anything and everything that is around it. Um, is this only relevant for business? Not really. I mean, in general, if we see, whenever we take a total accountability of something, the chances of it getting the result that we desire is much more than we trying to find somebody else accountable for it, right? So from accountability, we move on to another aspect, which is very key. That will be decision making. An entrepreneur will have to make decisions. In a normal office environment, you can do upward delegation, downward delegation. In a home environment, you can do further delegation. Delegate to your parents, delegate to your child's children, delegate to your cousins, delegate to somebody else. But cultivating an entrepreneur mindset and having a total accountability, um, one has to take that decisions. And in our day-to-day life, whether in business or not in business, we would realize that the space or the time between not deciding and deciding is a time of panic, whether whatever that is. I mean, if if one wants to decide whether to go somewhere or not, to enroll into some training or not, what will happen if I enroll, and will it give me a certain amount of value? There's this huge amount of expense involved, all of it. But as an entrepreneur and having an entrepreneur mindset, one will have to take a decision. And sometimes the decision, because as the value of the decision would be higher, there would be some amount of panic, but still one will have to just take it, uh, telling yourself that um, this is the only way to move on. So take decision, right or wrong, doesn't matter. Taking decision is important, because not deciding will definitely set things in panic. Yeah. And of course, with practice, we all learn to develop new abilities. We learn to take better decisions. We learn to do better planning and many other things. So learning becomes a very key aspect of part of the entrepreneur uh, mindset. And again, entrepreneur mindset is not just for the entrepreneurs. It is basically making yourself enterprising enough to succeed in whatever goal you set for yourself. And as we learn, uh, being an entrepreneur, definitely one would be doing things that the person has not done before. One will have to take a path that the person has not taken before, and one will have to cross through the learning pit, in which it definitely will start from, you are learning something you new, you won't understand what it is. It will look too hard. There will be a point where one would want that this is just too hard, let me just quit. And only when you cross the wall after that and keep trying, over a period, we learn that new thing, and then everything looks fine. So what was something uh, very very hard, but if we keep trying and keep learning it, after some time when we learn it, it becomes easier. Everything is difficult before it is easy. But it is also true that if we simply jump this pit, that means probably we are not learning, because when it will go bad again, it will break the confidence until unless you have some amount of learning to handle those any kind of situations. Yeah. So as an entrepreneur, one has to do things that you don't know how to do it, but we just keep learning how to do it. So that's the very core aspect of entrepreneurship, is just continuously learn. There will be new tools, new things. Every day there will be something new that one will be learning. And it will keep one into, always on their toes, whether it's learning about the finance, whether it's learning about the marketing, if we talk in terms of the business sense of entrepreneurship. And if we talk in the generic sense of any other aspect of life, continuous learning is very important and very enriched. So even if you are in some job or doing something else, in the speed that world is changing, it's very important to always keep up to the pace of that change and keep learning those aspects. You may not be the expert of it, but learn it enough that when you need that knowledge, you have it. And the most important aspect also is the humility that the entrepreneur mindset is part of the entrepreneur mindset and behaviors. Why be humble? Because being humble will always keep you fair, it will keep you sane, and it will keep you open to accept learnings and coachings from others. So if we have many other characteristics, but if we are not humble enough to look at our failures, humble enough to look at somebody else, to keep learning from others, and so on, and keep thinking that whatever we know is the best, and nothing else is there for me to learn, that will definitely set the vehicle on a downfall, because everything is changing. Everything will change every 3 months. And as an entrepreneur, one will have to always be up on the game and keep working on it. So, staying humble is one of the very key characteristics that the entrepreneur should be having. So, in the nutshell, we'll have to take risks, make decisions, accept our failures, take extreme ownership, complete accountability. There is no second way out. Stay humble and keep learning. So if one has these characteristics, no matter how hard the situations, the entrepreneur mindset will help that business or the entrepreneur to stay flexible, motivated, and growth focused, to pass through that situation, uh, even if they hit a adverse situation. So finally, work hard and stay humble is what I have learned so far in my journey. I'm still on the journey, still learning every day. So that's my learning so far. And, rest, Divya, over to you. If you have any, if anybody has any questions, then I can take it up.
Yeah, you got so many questions waiting for you, Alok.
Okay.
You want to stop sharing? Yeah. So maybe Nimisha, you and Sandeep, you want to unmute? Yes, Nimisha, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Divya, and special thanks to Alok. I think you were so apt. The presentation was wonderful, and each and every word was so meaningful. There was no verbosity, a very practical aspect. So I have some basic questions. Where do you start from? Do you start with your passion, which you are very passionate about, or something which is more in demand? And second question is that once you decide on what you want to start with, um, how to identify the knowledge gap, because you showed a pitfall which is so true, because there would be something which you are not aware of. So for example, nowadays e-platforms are a tool where a lot of marketing is happening. So a knowledge gap on e-platforms. And then the third one, how important is the role of a mentor during this journey? If you have one, will it make a huge difference? Thank you.
Okay. So I think the first part is passion versus demand. Very practically, it will lie somewhere as a, if you create a Venn diagram
You
of,
mean Ikigai?
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect, that diagram is actually a perfect place, because what I am passionate about, if it cannot be converted into monetary value, then no matter what I do, I will not be able to create a business that generates money. And of course, if it is not in demand, then nobody will be there, or not many people will be there to buy it. So it will have to be created in terms of how much is your passion, and all three of them are very important. Um, Passion is important because as one will move along over a period, there will be times which will be very tough for the business and otherwise. And during that time, what will happen is only your passion. If you are passionate enough, then only you will be able to drive yourself through that pump and through that speed breaker. But from a business perspective, so that's from a person's perspective, but from a business perspective, very honestly, cash is the most important factor. So whatever one would like to choose, only if they see that there is a opportunity to convert whatever products or service into cash, and there is a demand for it, if it is, if it is a growing demand for it, then definitely it is a profitable place to venture into. So that's one. And second is knowledge gap. I plug most of my knowledge gap through YouTube. I invest a lot of time in YouTube. It's an excellent tool that we have available. It's just so much enormous free knowledge. I mean, which was not available to our previous generations. So we are lucky that way. Things being online is again made things so easier for us. We don't have to run around in many of the government offices to get registrations and all that. Many of it is all available online. So that way is now it's up to us to learn it and deploy it. Nobody else will be able to do that. So many of the aspects, as we start a new business, whether you have picked a service or a product which you have no idea about, um, uh, as a entrepreneur, as a owner, you will have to go through that journey to know it well enough that you are able to sell it. Maybe not enough that you should be able to maintain it, but know enough that you are able to showcase, demonstrate the value of it and able to sell it. उतना तो सीखना पड़ेगा, उसके अलावा कोई चारा नहीं.
नहीं सर, सीखने के नहीं. My
हाँ,
question was more towards can you identify what gaps you need to plug it before you start, or it's a part of a journey that as in when you start you recognize these are
okay.
the things, so the stage at which or the knowledge gap can be known beforehand. That's what I was just asking.
Yes, I think सबसे की एस्पेक्ट जो है उस नॉलेज गैप का ये होगा कि जो भी हम करने जा रहे हैं उसकी डिमांड, मार्केटेबिलिटी एंड सेलेबिलिटी कितनी है. क्योंकि जो बाकी एस्पेक्ट हैं वो बड़े एकेडमिक नेचर के हैं जो कि इजीली सॉल्व किए जा सकते हैं. जैसे आपको कंपनी कैसे खोलनी है, यू विल फाइंड अ वे टू टू डू दैट. आपको उससे रिलेटेड लाइसेंसेस क्या लेने हैं, इट इज इजियर टू फाइंड दैट. मगर जो सबसे क्रिटिकल टफ पार्ट है कि वट एवर वी आर ट्राइंग टू डेवलप अ प्रोडक्ट और अ सर्विस, at the end of the day, who is the customer, who is that person, why they are buying, and how much they will be able to pay for it, and how many such people are there out there whom we can influence. इसका एक अगर हाई लेवल एस्पेक्ट है, वो करना बड़ा जरूरी है,
Okay.
क्योंकि ऑल्दो जैसे मैं अब एक्टिवली कॉर्पोरेट उसमें नहीं हूँ, बट I still get a lot of calls whereby many of the companies hire the analyst to get this data from many of the customers. So, for example, uh, I get contacted by many of the you know IT product development teams who are planning to come up with the product, and so some of the consulting companies where I do freelance, so they have the questions more in terms of what is the usability of such product or service. So what I'm trying to say is that is the core, that's the meat basically, which will
Okay.
have to be tackled first, and everything around it is relatively easier actually.
Okay.
Hope this answers your question.
Yes, just on mentor, if you can say a few words.
Mentor, of course, it does help, because uh, if you venture into something where one has no idea about, it makes you very nervous and anxious. So with mentor, at least you feel that at least somebody whom I can bounce my thought to and seek advice from their experience. So it definitely helps if one has a mentor in those stages, especially the one who have been part of the related industry.
Exactly.
They have a lot of word of wisdom that can be leveraged. That's pure gold.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Hi, Alok.
Hi.
Good evening. Good to see
Good
you.
evening. Good evening, Sandeep.
I, I must say that I can relate with each and every word of yours. I have been to this journey for last 3 years.
Yeah.
So you talk about cash, and you rightly said that cash is more important, right? Along with your mindset, you need to have enough cash in order to operate and grow your business, right?
Right.
So my question is, how to generate funds for your business, be it a seed funding, angel investment, venture capital. What is the way out? Like, say, let's say my business is ready, my pitch deck is ready, what my product is ready, my business is making profit. Now let's say I have to grow in terms of revenue, let's say if I have to develop my product and that needs investment, what is the next process then?
It's a mix of many processes, Sandeep. The way I have seen, so I am engaged with some of the other companies where they have come up with some innovative product, and there are others who have come up with an innovative service. Now, जहाँ पे सर्विस इन्वॉल्व है वहाँ चीजें आसान हो जाती हैं, because you are going to have a direct interaction, and if you have your first order or order pipeline, then any other person has more confidence to basically put up that funding into a business. So first line में of course जो एंजल इन्वेस्टर हैं या सीड फंडिंग है, वही एक एस्पेक्ट रहता है, और उसमें बहुत ज्यादा कुछ मिलता नहीं है. मतलब इट शुड बी एनफ टू सस्टेन एट लीस्ट 2 years ऑफ टाइम फॉर एनी ऑफ द कंपनीज. तो उससे ये होता है कि आपके पास में 2 साल का आपको एक रनवे मिलता है कि जिसमें आपको जहाज उड़ाना है, और उसमें आप अपना सब कुछ डाल के एंड कोशिश करें आगे, एंड देन गो फॉर अनदर राउंड. तो इफ देयर आर सम नंबर्स which have changed based on these 2 years things, um, that will then help to get more funding, of course. प्रोडक्ट के लिए थोड़ा सा आसान हो जाता है, बिकॉज प्रोडक्ट में क्या होता है ना, फिजिकली चीज हाथ में दिख रही होती है किसी को, तो उनको पता हो रहा होता है कि चलो ये पानी की बोतल है तो मैं पानी सप्लाई कर रहा हूँ, तो ये मैं इन्वेस्ट कर रहा हूँ. ये चाय है तो चाय बेच रहा हूँ, यूनिक प्रोडक्ट है तो इसलिए मैं इन्वेस्ट कर रहा हूँ. एंड ये एस्पेक्ट है। तो प्रोडक्ट के केस में अगर प्रोडक्ट एक निश एरिया में है, उससे कोई अच्छा यूएसपी है, तो उसके लिए थोड़ी सी आसानी हो जाती है। सर्विस के लिए थोड़ा सा टफ होता है, बट अगर एक यूनिक प्रपोजिशन हो तो देन, और एक इनिशियल फर्स्ट 2 ऑर्डर्स जो हैं वो उसमें थोड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट हो जाते हैं किसी भी इन्वेस्टर को कॉन्फिडेंस जनरेट करने के लिए। ऐसा मेरी लर्निंग है सो फार।
Thank you, Alok.
All right. Okay.
So anybody else who has a question? Anybody else? Paridhi, Shamita, anybody else? Anything else, Alok sir, that a person needs to keep in mind before they start? You spoke about passion. You spoke about that ikigai. You should, it should pay you also, and it should be something that you are passionate also, but you can't ignore the market demand for it. It be something which you can saleable basically. So anything else before one actually takes that venture, how things that we need to really prep for before we start?
The single word answer is cash. So इसको ऐसे समझते हैं. So suppose if a person is coming out of the job, obviously when they're setting up a new business, it's going to take some amount of time to reach somewhere. So at least by any which way, the business and the entrepreneur should have enough cash to last at least 2 to 3 years. And once that is available, then it becomes easier for the person to pursue it fully. Otherwise, the person will have to do something in the part-time to actually keep the monthly expenses going. So ये बड़ी practical situation है. So मेरी तरफ से I will not advise anybody to just simply jump in. Always first focus on see how much cash you will have in terms of how much runway it provides you in terms of number of years. My suggestion would be minimum take 2 years. Anything above 2 years is better, but minimum is 2 years that one should have before taking the plunge.
Okay. Cash rich one has to be before one gets into
I mean, it could be your own cash, it could be through the funding, but it should have enough cash to sustain for 2 years at least.
right. And say for example, I have a business idea, how and I really don't know what will be the market acceptance for it, market reaction to it. How do we go about?
So there is something called a primary market feedback or primary research, as we call it. And there are others which are in the category of secondary. So in primary means that you will have to bounce off that idea to somebody. So either if similar idea is already there in the market and if they are growing, so that gives some amount of indicator that yes, there is little bit of demand which is on the growth trend for this kind of product or service. So that's one positive. And then you have to then figure out that what people around you, because people around you will become your first patrons, first consumers, first customers, or first advocates who would help you to propagate your thought or idea or product to other people. So if they are not convinced, that is the second indicator, which is more like taking a primary feedback, first hand feedback. So these are the two steps. So to check that if there is some competitor already there, or 2 or 3 competitors, and they are growing slowly, that gives a lot of insight in terms of whether you should venture into or not. Suppose there is no competitor at all, then in such case one would have to rely on the primary feedback and of course the entrepreneur's gut feel to take that risk.
Okay. So that gut feeling is something that I hope, for all the entrepreneur it comes. It's a huge risk, job, the comfort and the cushion that a job gives. And then once you venture out and when you are on your own, the journey can be lonely. The journey can be, all with tumultuous experiences, and you hit and trials, and then figuring it out, and all is lost moments, and then yes, I'm on the right track moments. The way you showed that curve, I think the second slide that you showed, I think that it's gonna stay with me, and I'm sure with everybody else. So Nikunj is one of the entrepreneur that we have. I mean, he also wants to venture.
Okay.
Anybody else who has any question? Nikunj, you have any question? Paridhi, anybody else who has any question, please come forward. Yes, Nikunj, go ahead.
So good evening, Nikunj this side. I
Hi,
have a
Nikunj.
I have a small doubt.
Yes.
Like I'm working in Tata Power, for example, and I'm seeking for a business opportunity. And the person, or maybe my friends or family members who are doing business, they say you are better at doing your job. So they suggest me that you are good and comfortable doing job, and the people who are working, they actually feel like businessman has a good opportunity to actually grow. So there are like two ways of looking at the things. So at times it creates me, like you mentioned, that cash is more important, because as in you're working somewhere, you cannot create much of a savings that you can run your business for more years, like 1 year or 2 years. So that is a biggest challenge that what I am actually facing to take a decision for going for it. So can you just help me or throw some guidance on this?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe after this session also, if you want to speak in private, we can discuss that as well. But see, your thought process is toward a service or a product.
It's a service. It's a
It's a
service.
service.
Yeah.
So if it is a service, and if you are able to get a service contract for at least a year, then it gives you a good roadmap, a runway to actually sail through it without investing much of your own cash. Right. And
Yeah.
most of the service companies, many of my friends have IT service companies, and the only way out for them and many of them, when I was working in Siemens, they used to be my colleagues at Siemens. So what they did was, they were able to find the clients based on the previous projects that they have done, and able to secure 1 or 2 contracts for at least 1 to 2 years of time.
So I tried it for a smaller companies, it will work.
Yeah.
But if you go on the bigger ladder, they ask for experience, the turnovers, the all things. So you actually land up nowhere going into that. So this is the biggest challenge. Like if I go to some good corporates, they ask for experience or either a good turnover, and without experience, you are nowhere. So this is the one of the challenge which is being faced.
वो तो रहेगा निकुंज. I mean, उसका कोई वो और नहीं है, because all the bigger companies have a purchase procurement process. और उसका जो prerequisite होता है, until unless it falls into certain category, um, then then all those process में जो भी steps होते हैं, they perform, and it has to go through that due diligence. However, if the product or service is innovative enough, so case in point, I can take some of my friends and the companies whom I know, they are into artificial intelligence space, right? So when they came to us, they were like a startup when I was in Coke. And since there was no mainstream who was able to quickly turn around a pilot project for us, that became the opportunity for these smaller companies to quickly turn around a pilot project for us and secure a brand name for their slides that they are associated with one of these larger brands, and then leverage it further in their subsequent sales. So ये aspect है service oriented part में. So either it has to be such a niche that nobody else is providing, then definitely there is a opportunity in that space.
Yeah, sure, sir. I'll discuss with you separately apart from this. And thank
Sure,
you so much for the answers. Thank
sure,
you, sir.
sure.
I think many people got their answers, and it was a fruitful session. Anybody, sir is part of the group, so anybody wants to consult sir, he will be kind enough and humble enough to answer. But yeah, I think all the points that you gave, Alok sir, were amazing and very basic, but very much required if a person wants to get into an entrepreneur's journey. Yes, Paridhi, you want to share something?
No, nothing. I have already said a lot to him that he's made me an entrepreneur.
Your voice is not clear, Paridhi. We'll have to pay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying that he's already made me an entrepreneur, and there has been that rough journey what he showed, and I could relate to each and every point on that.
Yeah. So I can vouch for what you said. He is a tough taskmaster, but definitely he's somebody, we all look up to. And yes, it was an amazing session, Alok. So I think, this is one session that anybody who goes on an entrepreneur journey should definitely check, because you have spoken about all the basic points, but very important, very relevant, very important points. Nimesha was talking to me in person, and she was telling me all the points were bang on. So thank you so much, Alok. So it was a wonderful session, and I'm sure everybody will benefit. So I'll request anybody who watches it, please forward it to a person who's going to take on this journey or dreams of being an entrepreneur at any point of their life. Yes, Alok sir, thank you.
So thank you so much. Thank you, Divya, and thank you everybody on the session. I hope it was helpful for you, and thank you. Good night.
Thank you.